Yes, roll call.
Sorry.
On the fourth Tuesday of December. November. Right. We will be doing elections of our board. All right. Ken is on our board. Cindy is our vice president on our board. James is on our board. I'm on your board. We're missing Tom Kretz and, Valerie's over in Georgia, she doesn't come over, and Valerie's our secretary, I'm the treasurer, I get the money. And stuff like that, so we look for nominations. What, the board is not a high workload board, it is doing some creativity, in other words, what kind of programs we want, so we kind of do a lot of brainstorming. What do you want to hear about? You know, we kind of try to pull out information about you, what kind of topics you want. And so those are some of the things we do. If we meet, it typically, you know, sometimes we're in person, but lately it's been on Zoom. And I'll say kind of quarterly, so it's not, and it's usually maybe, you know, maybe after 2 hours, and 1 to 2 hours as far as the meeting goes. And so again, there's not a lot of homework with it. The other big thing we do is coordinate our class. If you know somebody who wants to take the class, we have it January 25th. It'll be at Bloomington High School. It's an all day. We have a variety of speakers. If you would like to be willing to speak on a topic that's helpful, we have PowerPoint presentations. So those are the things that if you're on the board, that's what we do. We do encourage you to possibly join the board. So anybody like here that would like to join the board? No one.
I was like, congratulations, we nominated you.
Yeah, it's not, we aren't a real hardcore, you know, rules of Roberts and all that stuff where we kind of jump on each other's case if we're not, you know, stuff. But we do try to, you know, be organized to, again, have presentations like we do with these things. But we also need, and the hard thing we have with our topics is you have beginners and you have experience. What the beginners need to hear, sometimes the experience say, I don't want to listen to that again. And then the experience kind of talks a little bit over, you know, the beginning. And so the beginner needs topics, the experience needs topics, and trying to get a balance of those. We've been trying to bring in maybe a few other outside speakers. We had David Burns. We had somebody else. Who else was we have? We had David Burns.
The guy from Missouri. Corey Stevens.
And stuff. So if there's a speaker that, you know, we can get at a reasonable price, we are more than happy to get some of those speakers. Some of them are probably pretty pricey, but you know, and again, looking for topics more than anything that we need, but we could use extra help, you know, just again, you know, it's primarily a brainstorming board. And would you like to add anything to that, Cindy? Jane? our equipment and
You
and,
can attend the board meetings via Zoom, because I do it if they have it in person, so
Yeah.
you don't have to.
yeah,
travel for-
yeah, so Val Zooms all the time, these meetings and the board meetings and stuff like that, we do it Zoom. I like in person because we can share some need, so yeah, we're flexible on our meetings within that. Okay,
And you make popcorn.
huh?
And you make popcorn.
I make popcorn, we have popcorn, and stuff like that. Anything else I need to talk about?
Anybody that missed it, there's a freebie table over there, I was
Okay.
going through.
Just FYI, our December Bees and Brews, which I'm gonna say is, I think, the 11th, I'm not sure on the date. But the December Bees and Brews, the club will buy hors d'oeuvres for whoever comes.
It's
So,
informal Christmas party.
yeah,
Yeah,
so.
little beavers, right?
It's possibility,
Possible.
yeah, so just be aware of that, okay? Anything anybody else would like to add? The equipment's been coming in and out of my place, been working pretty good. I've kind of got the hives kind of quiet for the season, winter season. Not doing inspections, so it's kind of, the inspections are on pause. What else is there? Well, hi there, friends.
Hey.
It's Friday. And stuff, so. Other than that, I don't have anything else to add. How's the library? Good. Okay, so, and again, I'm a book person, so I have a tendency to, I like to have one or two reference books of my own, because I'll think of something, I'll see something, and yes, the internet is great search. And sometimes you have to know what the term is first, before you can search and figure out what it is, and so I kind of look through a book and kind of go, oh, that's what that is, so I look at the term. So, nothing else? Any nominations? I already asked nomination. Okay, so.
Anybody nominate Izzy?
Well, it'll be interesting in that he's going into med school. So, no?
Maybe next year.
Maybe next year.
You're right.
Well, you're right, January.
Yeah. I was gonna say that, yeah. 2 months around.
All right, okay, now we are going to use our resident expert, Tom Pancone, to talk about Nosema, because I'm fairly naive on that topic and not being well versed in it, so he's gonna show us. All right. Mr. Tom.
So, everybody knows me. There's, trying to get it here. We've been talking about this now for about 2 years, about having a presentation on Nosema, but more importantly, having a test kit. So that you could bring bees in and be able to see if they have Nosema. So what I'll probably try and do is to see if we can do it at the next Bees and Brews. I think maybe that'll work out. If not, we can definitely do it a Little Beaver, but stash some bees. So from your hives, take a sample, put them in a Ziploc bag and put them in the freezer. And label which hive it is. And we can do the testing later on, because we did buy a scope and we bought the syringes to measure water, and some slides and stuff. There was a problem though from the shipping, the box of slides are crushed. And the camera's the wrong camera, so, but, we're trying to do it very economically, but, so to do it, you really don't need a lot of fancy material. You can pick something up off eBay, or actually a lot of times you can even find it at garage sales and stuff. My personal microscope that I have, I bought off of a state of Illinois auction. They were selling surplus equipment. There's a friend of mine bought, I think, a dozen of them, so I picked up 2, gave one to a friend, and then I have the other one, and it's like a $1,200 scope that I got for. I think I gave $100 maybe, something like that, so there's some pretty good deals to be had there. All you need is a microscope that can do 400x. So that's nothing nutty. You probably could use a digital microscope, but I would recommend you use an analog one. And we're gonna talk through some of those details. So what is Nosema? Anybody know what Nosema is? Are they, has anybody had problems with Nosema?
Like a disease.
Yeah,
Microsporidium.
yep, yeah, that's right. What does that mean? Big word.
It is a protozoan and it has like a little spike in it, and when it makes contact through mechanical and chemical means, it injects, it shoots out kind of like a jellyfish. And it injects itself into the cells in the lining of the intestine.
Yeah, usually it's through ingestion. So like right now,
They take it in, it
Yeah.
can lead.
foods. So bees are social creatures. A lot of times bees will feed one another, or they'll be eating from the same source, right? Whether that's a flower, whether that's from a feeder, whether that's from, a bird bath, whether it's from the hummingbird feeder, whatever. Any place where they find food, right now, the chicken feeder, those kinds of things, since they're social creatures, they'll pile up a lot of times, and that's how they pass the thing back and forth. It's a fungal disease, so. There's two different formats here. There's Nosema apis, APIS, right? And then there's Nosema cerana, CERAN.
Can you make your screen bigger?
I
Full screen?
might be a little bit bigger.
You should be able to make your slide full screen.
If you type.
You might have to open your presentation
Right,
instead of having it. You open that slide.
sure. I don't really have that option. Now I can't get it.
Google slideshow.
Is there anyone else online or is it just that you're there?
I think it's just us. So can you see that better?
Yeah.
Let me try it. If you like.
I mean, if you're gonna read me the whole thing, I need to see it.
The only thing you really need to see are the pictures.
Okay.
So I'll zoom in a little better there, right? So this is just a flyer, and I'll share all these to PK to send out an email. And I'll also put them on the Facebook page so you can kind of skim through it. But the big thing is that there's two different versions. There's Nosema apis and Nosema cerana. They're treated a little bit differently. We're gonna get to that in a minute. One's a lot harder to get away or to get rid of than the other, but it's a gut pathogen, like you were just saying there. And it comes from just the behavior of bees, right? So them being social creatures and sharing a lot of things, mostly food. So a big way to pass it right now is through feeders. So a lot of people are feeding right now. Like, for example, I texted Tom the other day and said, hey, I hope you got your supers off your hives, because we've been feeding like crazy behind his house. Because I saw his feeders were on there last time I was out there, or sorry, his supers were still there. And he said, no, I pulled them yesterday or whatever it was, so we're good to go. We dropped, I think, 12 gallons of feed in about 4 hours there. So that's how fast it went down. So that's just literally clouds of bees on all these feeders. We just use Rubbermaid totes and kind of open feed there. The problem is by Tom's house, that yard that I have is right behind his property. There's 4 beekeepers within probably a mile of those hives. So I fed all their bees, 5 actually, now that I think about it, because
We all thank you.
yeah, right, so you'll get a bill, man. So that's, I think so far we've probably thrown 75 gallons on there. And it's gone like that, and it doesn't even make it to the nighttime. But a lot of times that's a great way to pass disease. So a lot of times people don't open feed because of that reason. I'm short feeders, so that's what we're doing right now. We have feeders inside some of the hives, but just not enough for it. So how do you know that you have it, right? So this is kind of the old adage, the wives' tale. Can you see that? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's this streaking that's on the hive, and that's bee poop, right? So bees don't poop inside, they're very hygienic creatures. So if you do see streaking on the outside particularly, sometimes you'll see it inside on the top bars and stuff like that. It can mean that they have Nosema. The only way you know for certain if they have Nosema is to do a microscope test. So there's other things that can cause them to poop like this too, right? So One being this situation right here, this is from the University of Michigan, which is one of my favorite places to read bee stuff. Mostly because Megan Milgrat's there. I really like the way she teaches and presents stuff. But here, it was a warm day, right? So they got a chance to break cluster and get out. So bees can't poop inside the hive. When you get that nice day that's, high thirties, you better wear a hat, because they're gonna be out and they're gonna be flying, because they gotta go, right? So they might have been stuck inside for a month, 2 months, something like that. So that's, sometimes this is just, they gotta go so bad, they just get outside the door and that's what happens. So, other times there could be other things causing it too. There's other stressors on the bees. There's poor nutrition and other things like that. So, the spotting and streaking isn't necessarily a sign that you have Nosema. It's usually what all your mentors will tell you is if you have streaking like this, you have Nosema, but really the only way to know is to test. For me, I don't panic when I see streaking like this in the winter time or the early spring, personally. There's a lot of experienced beekeepers here. Do you guys freak out when you see it on your hives? When it's cold out?
Only once, when I was really, really bad, and I thought, oh, well, that hive's dead, but they may have you.
Yeah.
So, can they get over it on their own?
They can, sometimes, yeah. So, I think a lot of times this is just a sign of they got good nutrition inside the hive. And they just haven't been able to get out to do cleansing flights, right? So everybody's got poop, so that's what happens, right? Now, if I see this in the summertime, this is a very different story, right? Or if I see this late spring, beginning of summer, this is gonna cause me some concern, especially if I just bought bees from somewhere. Or brought in bees from maybe a tree or out of a house or from a swarm or something like that. This could mean that there's infection. Now, here's the deal. If you're buying packages, for example, most places that sell packages prophylactically treat for this. That's good and bad, right? Most of the time they're treating for this regardless. And we're gonna talk about the treatment methods for it. You shouldn't see this from nukes typically. Now, you could have stressors, you could have, like our spring weather has been bonkers the last couple of years where we'll get long runs of cool, wet weather. And it's the same situation when the bees can't get out, do cleansing flights, and then they'll have poor nutrition. Maybe you're not supplementing their food because you want them to be natural or whatever other reasons, that kind of thing. Like if the bees are stressed, it can cause problems. So I always err, you've probably heard me say it a million times. Sugar's cheap, so sugar and pollen stuff is cheap, bees are expensive, right? Although pollen patterns are pretty pricey, but I would still rather feed than lose my bees. Period. That's my practice. You don't have to do it that way. So this is kind of the main things here, and then it's basically you're doing molecular tests with a microscope, just like I said. 400x, and we're gonna watch a little video of Randy Oliver and how he does it. Now, here's the problem. With beekeeping, there is always a bunch of different ways of doing everything. So when you read about sampling, you'll see anywhere from 50 to 50, I'm sorry, 100 to 50. I saw one with 500 bees. I've seen others with 50. I've seen some with 15, and I've seen Randy Oliver's with one bee. So figure out what works best for you. And then I think one of the key takeaways is, Randy Oliver says, don't stress over it. Like it used to be like, it was a sign that your colony was gonna collapse and you're gonna have problems, but chances are you're probably not gonna fix it anyways. And they'll probably get over it with good nutrition. So that's the positive side, is that by making sure that they have good, high quality protein and they have carbohydrates available to them, they're gonna be in good shape. Now, I would like to see some research. I don't know if it's been done or not. I didn't get a chance to really spend some time Googling. But I would like to see some research in regards to fall honey causing some of that streaking and some of those kinds of things, because I think it's the ash content, isn't it? James, like I remember you watched that video too.
I know it has to do with the minerals,
Solids.
certain types of honey or, like in Canada, they replace all of their honey with sugar syrup in the fall because,
Right.
what is it, what's the oil, canola?
Yeah,
Canola is one of the really good crops and it's horrible for them to overwinter on.
it crystallizes really fast too.
Yeah, gets hard as a rock.
Aster is pretty bad with it, and goldenrod is pretty bad with solids inside of it. And it's like, it's kind of like fiber, and if you're giving your bees something like that, that means they need to have cleansing plates, and our climate isn't necessarily conducive for those cleansing plates. Although, last year it sure was, like the year before it was pretty good too, like they had tons of time to go out there. I really think it's pretty neat when there's snow on the ground, and then we get that warm day, and you can see the bee poop out in front of the hive. Then I know my bees are flying, and I know they're healthy, and I know they're eating, more importantly. Like even right now, I just took my truck to the car wash, because it was covered in yellow and brown bee poop on it. But what that means is my bees are eating, and they're eating healthy, so they're getting plenty of pollen. And I know that because the bee poop that's on my truck is that dark yellow, kind of color. You see the little dots all over everything. So I know they have good nutrition either inside of their hive, or they're getting it from sources outside, or they're getting it from my feeders or something like that. So that's a good sign to me, but to each their own. So, watch this video here, and I got a speaker on, so hopefully you can hear this, can't see this.
Is a worldwide bee disease. In fact, it's considered one of the deadliest pathogens that affect bees globally. Nosema is actually a single-celled organism that lives in the guts of the bee. It is actually a microsporidium which belongs to a fungi group. It's a fungus that actually affects bees as they ingest it. So Nosema can be spread from bee to bee as bees feed one another via trophallaxis, or as bees clean fecal material deposited by infected bees. Nosema has two species that affect bees. The first species is Nosema, the genus, Apis, the species. Nosema apis has been in the United States for a very long time. And typically beekeepers believe that when they see Nosema-like symptoms, that is Nosema apis that causes the problem. But in fact, Nosema serrata, a second species of Nosema, has been found in the US in recent years. It's very difficult to distinguish between these two Nosema, but both likely cause very similar symptoms in bee colonies. Now that we've discussed the biology of Nosema, let's talk about some of the symptoms associated with the disease and how to diagnose it accurately. First, the symptoms. You must remember that Nosema is a gut disease, and typically diseases such as this build up significant levels when there's a large population confined to a single area. The time of year that most occurs for honeybees is fall and winter. Consequently, Nosema tends to be a worse problem in late winter, simply because the bees have been trapped in the box all winter. They've been able to come out and defecate. Some of the diseases build up to levels that are not tolerable for the bees anymore. So how does this manifest according to their symptoms? Now, it's quite simple. There are really three symptoms associated with Nosema disease. First, you'll see bees wandering on the ground outside of the colony. Now, this symptom also occurs with a number of other bee diseases, so it's not a true indicator of Nosema, but it is certainly something that happens to the bees once they have a Nosema buildup. Secondly, bees with high Nosema spore counts in their body will exhibit what we call K-wing. Now, K-wing is where the forewing and the hind wing of the bee come unhooked, and they're displayed like the letter K of a bee. Now, again, although this symptom is associated with Nosema, it's not unique to Nosema. Tracheal mites, for example, can cause K-wing in bees. So bees on the ground, K-wing, both come with Nosema, but they're not unique to Nosema. The third symptom tends to show up more in Nosema colonies almost exclusively, and it is fecal staining on the front of the colony. Now, if you remember, Nosema is building up in the bee's system during winter as bees are unable to come out and void their feces. So what happens is on the first warm day, usually associated with early spring or late winter, the bees will leave the colony to defecate, and the moment they come outside, they'll defecate, which will result in fecal stains or streaks up and down the front of the colony. This is typically yellowish or brown or slight orangish color. Finally, another Nosema symptom has to do with a slow spring buildup. When the spring is coming on, it's warm outside, the bees are simply not able to grow to the levels that they need to be. Despite these symptoms, it's not 100% accurate to say that you have Nosema, even if you have all these symptoms. The only way to truly diagnose Nosema is to collect a sample of bees, put them in isopropyl or rubbing alcohol, and send them to your county agent or your state apiculturist, who will do dissection to determine if you have spores present in your bees. When you're collecting bees to send, it's important to get bees that are older, because these are the ones that are most likely to have large spore counts. So I recommend collecting bees from the ground in front of the colony, or collecting bees from the frames on the periphery of the nest, where older bees typically hang out. Do these things, send it to your local county agent, and we'll teach you next how to diagnose the problem.
So then here's, I like Randy's video a little bit better on how to do the testing. So this first example, he's doing 25 bees.
The most accurate Nosema count, our most representative would be to take your bees from the inside of the hive, just under the cover, or from an outside thing, just get a mixture of older and younger bees. So leave the bag open, no liquid in the bag yet. Take a big round jar, it's easier than a smaller diameter jar. You're gonna roll away from the corners of the Ziploc bag. You crush the bees into the corner, you break the bag loose, and you hear that crunching noise. You want to roll, geez, there's no more crunching noise. And you can see right now, you can see I've got the guts all loose. Now you want to put in 1 milliliter of water for every bee that's in the bag right there in your sample. So I'm going to use a syringe to measure that. If you don't have a syringe, a level teaspoon is 5 milliliters. So you use 5 level teaspoons for 25 bees. So I got 25 milliliters of water here, or 25 milliliters in. And at this point, you see it in the Ziploc bag. Now you want to just homogenize this, get all evenly mixed. Go ahead and press those bees. So now you've got a mean representative sample for each breed. Then use your fancy lab tool right here. I have a plastic one. Microscope slide here. You want to bring the first member, so take your sample. If the spore starts to sink quickly, just stir it in there with 1 drop right there on the spot. That's all you need. Out of all that prep, you're gonna get 1 drop right here. Put a cover slip over it and press it down. That goes underneath the scope 400 times magnification. Send that drop on there. And you just look within your field of view and you see any Nosema spores. I'll show you in a minute what they look like. All I'm seeing is just pollen right in here. So there'd be no reason to go any further. If we found some Nosema, then what you can do is then do an individual bee squash. And that was of 10 bees. And that will tell you, after you crush 10 bees, that would tell you the nearest 10% of the percentage of bees in the hive are actually infected. Oh, I need a round table. I can do with this. You're gonna take your bee right here, and you're gonna press down next to the end of the thorax and the thorax abdomen, and press backwards, and that will squeeze all the gut contents out of the rectum onto the slide. Press that down just a little bit. You may just need to add just a tiny drop of water, and then put your cover slip back on. And this is a black or white, yes or no. You're going to see whether it's infected or not infected right now. And what you're going to see is you're going to see squash bee guts and rectal contents, digested pollen grains, and this bee is clean right here. So you just do that for 9 more bees, and you count how many are infected and how many aren't. Your number of infected bees in a hive gets above 4 out of 10, 40% of bees infected. The colony starts to show signs of disease overall from Nosema. You get up to about 6 out of 10, it's serious, it's something to worry about. And you get up to about 8 bees out of 10 infected, and I see that in the very, very early spring in California. That colony will often go into collapse and do very rapid depopulation, just leaving the brood behind They stop foraging the nectar, and then it's just evaporate after, usually evaporate, yeah.
Not familiar? So there you go, these little pills right here, that's what they look like, right here. All these little dots out here. Those are Nosema. So pretty simple, it's not terribly hard, doesn't require a lot of fanciness or anything like that, so it's just a.
Look at a microscope.
Yep, 400x microscope, and just a Ziploc bag and some water. They say distilled water, not sure it's all that important, I'd probably use RO if you have well water, but that's really kind of all that's needed for it to be able to do that testing. Now this is where there's some differing opinions on, you know, what is too much and what's too little. That's kind of up to you. I like Randy's simple way of doing it. I really like the idea of stashing the bees right now, in the freezer and then testing them during the winter. We have a lot of opportunities. We could do this. We could do it at our hardware workshop. We could do it, you know, at Bees and Brews or stuff like that. Or, like if we pick a night somewhere, I'm happy to go meet up, somewhere you can do your samples and things like that. So right now, save your bees, put them in the freezer, make sure you label which hive it is, so you know which one. Now, I think you may have heard the first guy say, put them in isopropyl alcohol. So right there should have turned on your thought process that, hey, I could reuse those bees that I did a whitewash on. So that way you're kind of getting double the use of those bees. So they gave their life for two things, not just one. So
Well, except that the bees that you want are older bees and the bees that you get from your whitewash.
so
Younger bees.
there's some differing thoughts on that too, is that, so like Randy Oliver, actually in his, one of the reasons why I like him is he's always, it's frustrating, because he's always changing his stance on stuff as he learns. So like all his pages and documentation, like his
Involvement.
what do you call it? I don't want to say it, it's a book, it's a publication called Fat Bees that talks about like how to prep your bees for winter and how to have successful wintering. He's got tons of revisions in it, right? As he learns more stuff about it, like how he does washes, he's probably had 12 revisions on it or something like that. And like his Nosema testing, he's got 3 or 4 revisions on it. And he says actually to mix up young and old bees on there for that reason. And that if you have it, he's more concerned about young bees having it because that means you have a higher load, right? With older bees, it's pretty common that they're gonna have it, may not cause enough to be a problem in the colony. So like those young bees are getting fed immediately as soon as they're coming out of that capping.
I'm not sure about this, but, do I remember correctly, basically with Nosema, it's not a matter of whether they have it in the colony,
Yes,
it's what
it's the
level
load.
it's at, it's
exactly
always present. It's just that if they're healthy, those levels stay low.
That's exactly right. So
Okay,
it's like, well,
that's what I was thinking.
chances are they probably have, it's like mites, right? They're gonna have mites, but it's just how bad the mites are. And it's similar with Nosema. I guess you could have a clean hive, but depending on the time of year, you're probably definitely gonna see it, right? That kind of thing. And here you can see, like we were talking about bees that you know, they're eating well, this is all pollen from them when you squish their abdomens out to empty their gut contents. So you can see that they're eating pretty well. And this is in his other publication, Sick Bees, where he kind of talks about the ailments and problems that bees face, but he really nerds out on the whole testing process and stuff like that. And the funny part is at the end, he's like, what does it really say? Right? Is it a problem? Is it something I need to be concerned about? Or is it something that I can treat with a practice, right? Do I have to go buy Fumidil, or I always forget what it's called, but Fumidil, to go use? This stuff's expensive. Like that probably looks pretty reasonable. That's only 25 grams. That's like an ounce, right? So that's not much at all. So it's pretty pricey. Like you would use this just to treat a couple of hives. Like it's very expensive to do a treatment on it, and it's, here, we can look at the dosing actually right down here, so there you go. So, yeah, it kind of gives you an idea, you mix it in your feed to kind of knock things down, so. Then the Nosema serrana, you have to hit it harder. So it might take subsequent treatments where, the Nosema apis usually clears up pretty quick. Now, there's some thoughts about honeybee healthy doing that, some of the essential oils being able to clear their guts. The tricky bit right now is if you use honeybee healthy in the fall, you're gonna have real problems in your hives. You're gonna cause tons of robbing, you're gonna cause, the wasps particularly to come after them. Everything comes to the table when you feed with them, unfortunately, this time of year, so. Just some thoughts, you just gotta figure out what works for you and in your operation. That's pretty much what I have on those questions. Comments, thoughts? Has anybody used Beekeeper in their house?
Who's the author of the book? You said Fat Bees,
Oh, it's Randy Albert.
maybe Oliver?
Yeah, scientificbeekeeping.com. It's free, it's on there. It's just a PDF you can download.
How prevalent is Nosema around here, that you know?
I see it a fair bit, although. Like everything says, you can't just trust streaking.
Right.
So you gotta test it with a scope. So, we're trying to be better about it within our operation. Test a bigger sampling of bees, and that's the nice part is you can put your little Ziploc of bees in the freezer. Then when you're bored in January and miss your bees, you can go test them, right, and figure out if you have a problem. To know what's up, so I think the more information you have, the better. When your bees are dead in the spring, everybody always points to mites and says, oh, those mites, and chances are it probably was, but. It's probably mites, probably nutrition, but it could be all these other things that are just, it's layers of the onion, right, that aren't doing those bees any favors, and that's his other publication, the Sick Bees, is a really good read. He'll call it the, what is it, the Three Horsemen or something, where he talks about like anytime he speaks, it's like moisture, nutrition, and pests. What kill your bees. Other questions?
What telescope do you recommend buying for Nosema?
Yeah, so it kind of depends how bad your eyes are. So, for me, you want a 400x magnification. And here's another reason why. I would recommend you get like 400 to 1,000, because then you can also look at pollen. You can do some other things, like you really want to nerd out and see what kind of pollen is this particular thing. Like everybody always asks, what pollen is this? Sometimes people know, and sometimes I think they're guessing, they tell you what it is, but you can actually go look that up. There's actually pollen databases that show what it looks like on the slide. So that 400x you can use for other purposes besides Nosema. And then the lower magnification you can use for other stuff in your bee yard. Let me answer the rest of his question. I'll tell you something else about microscope. So the other thing I would recommend is to get the soft cups on the microscope for your eyes. And then you'll usually, if you wear glasses or something, take your glasses off when you use it. For me, I don't do well with a stereo because I don't do the same on both eyes. So I usually close my one eye and focus through the other. Plus, like on the scope that we picked up here, it had a camera in one of them. Because I didn't spend money to get the tree, I forget what they call it, a trifocal or something like that, where there's a third one beside your two eyes where you can use the camera at the same time. For something like this, you can easily do the camera and have it on a laptop or a TV or a monitor screen. That'd be great for you or somebody else. Like if you have a hard time seeing things, it's really nice way to see it. Or if you want to teach or show some other people how to do it. So hopefully we'll be able to do that as a group. Like I said, maybe a hardware workshop would probably do that. Table, do some testing. So save some bees. So save like maybe 25 bees from each of your hives. Usually the outer frames are better, but if you're doing a late white wash, you can save those and not have to kill more bees, but label them for which hive it is and put them in your freezer right away. So that the other reason why you're putting them in the freezer is not just to kill them, but if they overheat, they spill all their guts. So they'll vomit, and then you've lost everything that was in them. You might not get accurate, Nosema counts. So like if you're doing it in a field, working on your bees, even right now, this time of year, put them in a cooler with an ice pack, because they will overheat. And then you're in trouble with that. So that's the kind of microscope I would say, 400x. You need 400x magnification, period. I would look for ones with the cups. Stereo is probably better, which means 2 eyepieces. Then I like the ones that can connect to a computer or something like that, because then I can take screenshots, or I can show it to other people, or like multiple people could be looking at it. That kind of thing, and they're not very expensive. I think the one I got for us, everything for the kid, I think they were like $330 or something like that. That was with like a bunch of slides, that was with the camera, the microscope, some syringes. That was it, but pretty reasonable. You don't necessarily need the syringes either. You're using the syringe for measuring. That's all it is. So you could get a flask, or like he said, 5 ml per teaspoon or teaspoon. So yeah, there's a lot of things. So one other cool thing unrelated to Nosema, if you Google smartphone dissection microscope, it's like a couple of dollars worth of parts, but basically it's a thing that just holds your phone up, and then you can zoom in, and then you can look at your bees close, so you can see like the pollen on them. You can see like parts inside, like do dissection and see what's up inside your bees. So that's a neat way to do it, pretty cheap. So it's like a couple dollars you have to invest in it, maybe $70,000 phone. But that's all I got here.
So if you're not doing a mic wash, you're not using alcohol, how do you get 25 live bees into a Ziploc bag?
I just shake them. So, it took me a while to learn, but like your cup that you use for the mite wash has a flat space. And I just heard like why it happens, it's because of the tension. But if you have a frame of bees and you just run it down their backs, they literally pour into the cup.
Yeah.
And it took me a couple times to get it right. Like Arthur does it awesome, like perfect every time. Now I got the hang of it too. It's like knowing like what the right pressure is, but they literally just pour in there. And you could do the same thing with like a Ziploc bag or something. You gotta not be afraid of your bees. It's because like you're gonna have to touch them. You could pick them and put them in as well. There's a lot of different ways. Today I did a batch where I banged a frame into a Ziploc gallon bag. So I don't know, there's probably 500 of them in that bag. So there's a lot of ways. Kind of what you're into, how willing you are. But originally, like Randy Oliver's thing, he retrofitted this little vacuum thing, and he would suck them off of the board as they came in. But what he found out was he was getting bad test results from that. So that's why he goes inside of the hive and picks them instead. So I would say reuse your mite wash cup and just drag it down the frame. You'll get more oil off of it.
Sarah, did you have a question?
Yeah, do you have any good resources for like, information on bee nutrition or research on anything like,
Randy Oliver's Fat Bees.
it's just all, okay.
It's fantastic. It's a big read this morning. I think it's like 30+ pages.
Is
So,
that online?
yep, it's on scientificbeekeeping.org. I think it's better. If you just Google Randy Oliver, you'll find it too. But yeah, scientificbeekeeping.com. Sorry. That's a really good one. There's some stuff from Be Aware, I think. All the universities have. The University of Michigan has good stuff. Cornell has good stuff. Florida has good stuff. Bob Bain, I think, has a couple of really good videos on nutrition that I like. One thing that I found with if you buy pollen, put it in the freezer. Because it goes bad, it loses its nutritional value really, really fast. So as soon as you buy it, put it in the freezer. And I would buy from somebody that moves a lot of pollen. I wouldn't buy it like Farm to Fleet. Because it could be last year's, that's been sitting on the shelf.
What about the, fun that patties?
Yeah.
Those, do you have to refrigerate those at all, or do you rather just refrigerating or freezing those?
I don't know, because some of those have some stabilizers on them. I. No, I haven't sprayed for the, I have a lot of ones, but. I thought
I have, they're good,
they're pricey,
they're pricey, but they're good.
it keeps your bees alive. How much do they go through? You go through like 1 a month, 2 months?
No, like, well, cause I have other feed on there over the winter, so I put them on there and some of them won't even finish it. And by the springtime, the other ones will go through one.
And it's got that Hive Alive in there, which does clean their guts
Mhm.
too. That's pretty good stuff. I started using that rocket fuel in my feed. I really like it. I think it's.
Rocket fuel.
Yeah, it's a. Things who said that.
Guy out of Canada that created it, it kind of started up there. And
It's called rocket fuel.
Yeah, well, no, that's a slang term.
No, it is. It's Apis Biologic,
There you go.
rocket fuel, helps.
Oh, so they are actually calling it rocket fuel, and I think Canadian Beekeeper coined that.
It did.
Oh.
It's
They've got a couple products. They've got one that you put in your syrup, and then they've got one that you put in your pollen sub.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to take the pollen sub, and basically it's bringing it up a notch, giving, they went through and they analyzed the different pollens and all the different substances in the pollen. And it's supposed to help replace a lot of those extra substances in the pollen that give them a more complete nutrition. And everybody that's used it said it works really good.
it used to have Apis Biologic.
Is it Apis Biologic?
Yeah, it's right there.
Oh,
BIOLOGIX. Shameless plug for Tom.
It doesn't.
And you can buy it in patties, palm patties, and there's spring buildup stuff. I wouldn't feed it right now personally, but I would definitely do it in the spring for sure. I did it probably 3-4 weeks ago. Build up strong yeast for winter. That's why we hard over and over and over and over. Get your mites down in July. Because then you have clean bees to gorge themselves on feed, so you get strong, healthy fat bees for there. If they got mites, the mites are eating their fat stores, so they're being born at a deficit, right? Malnutrition right off the bat. And that comes along with easy, susceptible to disease and stuff like that.
and if you have healthy bees, good nutrition, that staves off a lot of disease that was on, and obviously keeps them healthy.
I saw Bob Denny's thing about EFB. I guess he just released a video or something. I haven't watched the whole thing yet. But I definitely I'm surprised it wasn't on like the side of my YouTube. Luckily I didn't have any videos long, but yeah, it was he just posted one about feeding supplements for get feed and get over it.
Are you talking about the patty that the pad that he's putting
I
on?
haven't watched it yet.
Oh, okay. It's actually a pad, with, different,
Oh, the towel.
oils. Yeah, the towel,
Yeah.
and they actually had, they had 3 or 4 hives that had EFB in it. And one of them was really bad, and they had put it on, and 10 days later, they came back to make the video and it was all gone. It literally wiped it out in the hives. It did such a good job, and it's relatively cheap and easy to make. It's for EFB, European powder. It's, can't remember what all kinds of oils it is. You've got a carrier oil, that's most of it. And then there's like 3 other types of oil that you put in it.
He gives all the recipe.
And yeah, he gives you a recipe.
He's not sure I might have it.
And it's, in my mind, it's something, because with EFB coming through, in the spring, people tend to have some problems with it, and, I'm trying to put it, I started it last year. I used it last fall because I had made a couple mistakes with my hives that had some real issues. And so I just treated it with it because my hives weren't very healthy, last fall. And so, and I think that helped. And so I'm gonna probably just, because all it is essential oils, and so
That's the
why not
recipe right
treat it
there.
once a year, just provide.
So it's just canola oil, tea tree oil, eucalyptus oil, and camphor oil.
Yep, there you go. There it goes.
Is that from Bob Benny?
Yeah.
Yeah. Bob Benny has a YouTube page that is very informative. He's very informative, and he isn't doing anything crazy, but he also thinks outside the box a lot.
He's just the most quiet, well, awesome guy to talk with. I've sat and talked with him for probably an hour and a half over the last couple of years with the Honey Expo. There's super nice. He's like, no, please, come on, there's a spare bedroom, you're welcome. My wife might cook for you. This is super nice guy, yeah. So there's your recipe right there.
And he is just he would be like any other person on the street, but the guy's got a very large operation. He supplies honey for Walmart. And he goes through.
He mentors everybody and he holds no secrets.
Yeah.
My friend that sells packages always jokes, he's like, well, Bob wouldn't give away everything. He tells you everything, every single thing, there's no secrets. He even has like a whole free video series about like starting a bee business and how to build your hives and how to get into stuff. And then one of his guys that works for him, Seth, he has his channel as well now, and he's just a super nice guy. I'd probably talk to him for 5 hours at the expo and at the hotel and all stuff like that. He's just a great guy.
And
Just
Bob's
super
really
nice.
helped him get his business for himself.
Absolutely, he does it to everybody. And he's like, you come up on the phone and talk to him, he's just a super nice, approachable guy. Most beekeepers are. I found, but there's this recipe. That
Do they make probiotics for bees?
you
Like what are they? How do you get them?
no idea. Well, you can buy them all. So there's one that like the lady kind of irritated us and I think we banned her from our page, but they're out in Michigan.
There's, on the Bob Benny's,
Biologics maybe.
yeah, on Bob Benny's channel, he has, a video that he does about probiotics. That he did, last year also.
Strong
And-
microbials.
And, he said whenever they started using it, he said there wasn't anything that you could put your finger on, but all the hives that they used, and even some of the employees put it in their hives. They said that their bees just looked healthy and seemed healthy.
They use it after a stressor. So like after they move them, after they come out of winter, or they do mite treatments, those kinds of things is when they usually use those. Man Lake sells a bunch. There's a whole bunch of varieties out there.
Like there's little probiotics for bees, like. Okay.
Everybody's selling silver bullets.
Yeah, I guess when companies are good and like reputable,
I'm sure that other company is reputable. It's just that lady rubbed me the wrong way and their people have rubbed me the wrong way every time I talk to them. They're very pushy, very pushy. Yeah. There's another business. Something microbials, when I say strong microbials. It sounds very.
Well, they came across like a bathroom salesman. Yeah,
Incredible.
I mean, that's when I buy it now. And like, yeah, it's too much.
So you had a question about your hive.
I did,
Yeah.
but I have a different one to throw in there. The reason I know a little bit about Nosema
Sure.
is in college, I did a paper on Nosema lacusta canning, which they were trying to use as a biological control to keep the crickets and grasshoppers down in the wheat fields in Utah. So one of the things I got from that is it's totally useless to try to use Nosema as a biological control. Because millions upon millions of spores they would produce and harvest, spray out there. Now, again, this is for crickets, this isn't the bee ones. But those spores are so susceptible to changes in humidity, they dry out, they get fungus growth from too much humidity, and they just don't last. And the chances of a cricket coming across a spore randomly and getting infected to a level that is gonna be detrimental to it, to use it as a pesticide type thing, it just doesn't work. So I imagine it would be about the same way with bees. Because it's where they say you have to have, say, 25 spores inside the gut to be able to produce enough of a population. And they're gonna infect and auto-infect and keep infecting the intestinal lining.
Yeah, usually use a
Reproduce,
hemostatometer to do
blow
that.
up, and it's coming out when they go to the bathroom. And with bees, they go outside to do it, they're not doing it
Mhm.
in
They can
the,
clean it up. The weather clears it off,
yeah, so.
freezing, rain.
The thing that probably does make it successful is the fact that they feed each other.
Right.
If they get one to get in there
Yeah, if you
and
think
they
about the
start-
bee emerging, that's the first thing
Right,
is they
the
get
first
fed by
thing
their.
they get is that royal
sisters,
jelly,
yeah.
where they're puking back in. But that isn't that coming more from the upper digestive
I don't know.
than it would from the lower?
They say gut, so I would think it's lower.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not
it's,
an expert. I learned quite a bit actually. Just reading about it.
so the question I was asking you as we were walking in was, is it worth saving bees that aren't, that didn't do their job over the summer?
Yeah, so that comment right there is like, when you said they were a weak hive, they just never built up. There's so many things that could be causing that.
They started out, I got swarms for both hives. First hive, 6 weeks before she laid any eggs. As soon as she laid about a third of a frame of eggs, they executed her, made a new queen. I went through 3 requeens, just bam, bam, bam. So they did not even get started well until early August. Now I've got 3 overflowing hives. But they didn't go out, collect resources, so there's very little pollen, very little honey. Is it worth feeding them, get them through the winter, if they don't seem to understand how to be bees?
So. Here's my
I
comment.
agree, I want the honey, I want them to be productive.
I'm greedy too. Like I want them to pay their way.
Yeah,
Right? So, like,
absolutely.
I'll do great things for them if they do great things for me. Right, that's kind of the deal, right? And if they don't, then we're gonna make some changes in management, right, through that. So whether that's, when I say changes in management, it's either like I'm gonna do feed, or I'm gonna do supplement bees, or I'm gonna change the queen. Or maybe change some hardware out, or give them some drawn comb. Like, there's a lot of things I can do to supplement them. So let's talk about what each of those things do. So the first question I asked you outside, and I said, I want to talk about this in front of everybody. Because I think this is a common problem. Like Kathy had this, I think, the last 2 years. She had at least one hive where they were just sputtered. They never built up. And I think everybody has that. If you have multiple hives, you always have one that'll sputter here or there. You might have all of them sputter, but the one thing I'll say I usually first do is I'll give them a frame or 2 of bird. I think you and I were talking about this at the happy hour at Tibby Creek about it, but I'll give them a couple frames of dark brood and, get the party started inside there. Give them lots of young nurse bees, because that queen could be laying. I've watched it on a frame where the workers will come right behind and eat the egg because they know that they can't support them. They know that they don't have the resources. They don't have labor, they don't have food, they know they're starving, right? So they're not gonna support new bees. And you can look up bee cannibalism and you'll read about that. What they'll do, they'll eat that, 'cause they don't waste anything. They don't waste anything. They eat that egg, they'll eat the royal jelly in there, and they'll pass it on to something else, right? They're gonna use it to feed others. They're not gonna waste. So that's one thing, is that you gotta have a strong, young bee population, because those are the ones that do the heavy lifting. Kelly, you have a question?
Like, right now with it being warmer, when you've done your inspections, you see the way resources there. We see ours are going through everything.
Yeah, they're
Oh,
starved.
I've got massive bees right now, I mean.
And they're probably starving.
Force them down, yeah, probably, because there was very little honey.
It doesn't matter, even if they had it, they've gobbled it up. Like, they're going through massive amounts of food right now. Like, I had old supers on hives and they're strict clean, there's not a speck of honey in them. But, and that's just in a couple weeks. Like, they're eating food as fast as I can put it on. That's how much they're going through right now.
That seems like what we're doing too. We went through what? We went through like 300 pounds of sugar in the last 3
Well,
weeks.
the food stopped the second week of September. And even then, it was dead until the beginning of September. I didn't have anything coming in, or I had like spotty feet in different yards, so like. Just this year's been horrible.
They had lots of pollen, I mean, there's lots of pollen.
Backfilling a lot of pollen. Yeah.
And they could do that for a number of reasons too. Sometimes they'll do that when they're stressed with disease. Certain types of bees, carniolans, are known for packing in pollen, like I'll have to pull it out. Kathy was doing that all summer, she was pulling out frames of pollen. She did full,
And then what are you supposed to do with it? Cause they don't ever take it up, so like you just scrape it off, right? Or scrape it off, sometimes they don't touch it, right?
pressure washer, cause it rots,
Right, but I mean,
it stinks.
but the pressure washer will, do you scrape it at all or just pressure wash it?
I just pressure wash it. But I don't have a nice driveway, I don't know those things. So
Mine's graffiti.
there's that, but so that. You could scrape them, but I just pressure wash them, and
Also,
then re-wax them,
yeah,
put them back in, because it'll stink. Like you'll smell the frame when it starts to turn.
And it'll hold migrate.
Yeah, it does. The moisture will pick up on there. So that's the first question is about young bees. Do they have a young population? Hang on, we're gonna come back. They have a young population of nurse bees, because those are doing the hard work, right? They're doing the feed.
Did have, but they stopped laying. Last week.
Okay, and you were feeding?
We weren't at that point, no.
Okay, so
Probably
that's,
should have, so
that's
that's
the other
probably
thing.
the answer.
So I'd be throwing food on them and see what they do. Right, see if that helps. It's just been a weird year this
Yeah,
year.
they weren't even really coming out and doing a lot of orientation flights this year. It's like, I don't even know if I have bees in there, and then you get in there, it's like 8 frames covered with bees. It's like, why aren't you going out? Food's out there, go, you know?
It's not.
It's not, yeah.
So that hive, have you done light tests on it?
Yeah, there's nothing.
Curious about that too.
Because, sometimes what can happen, with a hive, if you've got a hive that's just sitting there sputtering, they can have infestation of the mice, or what's worse is you get the, viruses that the mites inject into the bees. And then when those viruses get systemic in the hive, they're just not gonna do
The wings
anything.
look good this year. That's
Did
what
you-
happened last year, is I didn't treat last year, and I lost my bees that I bought. And, I was seeing all the little K-wing and
Did you treat them?
donations. We had so many brood breaks. There was just,
Did you do a shake, alcohol shake?
Yeah.
And none?
we had none in one hive and 2 in the other.
Did you do multiple shakes through the year?
Just this week we did it, and then the week following we did it again, and it's the same thing, it was just.
But you did a couple through the year, is what I'm saying, and they came up clean.
Yeah, so we just had brood break after brood break after brood break on them, so.
I don't know, I'm a sucker, I would feed them, so I
See
would,
what happens.
boy, I wish we get some cold weather.
If they're good and strong, you can split them out in the spring.
Or
Yeah.
queen and.
Put some good cleans on them.
Yeah.
So I would feed them dry sugar, like keep them going and then put dry sugar on when it gets cold.
Mm.
If it ever
So
gets
at what
cold.
point do you cut off the 2 to 1? Cause there's no way they're gonna dry it down.
I-
You know,
I only feed when it's above 45. So
Night or day?
doesn't matter. So if you, that's a great point. I think that's, you're feeding me that question. So if you have a feeder of syrup and it dips below and it's like 35 or 20 at night, that syrup's gonna get cold. Well, what happens to the bee when it goes in that syrup? They lock up and freeze, right? Then they die. So then you'll have a pile of dead bees in there, or you'll have like, you'll see them frozen on the frame kind of a thing. That's until it gets warm enough for them to come out if you're lucky. they might
You're
survive.
overfeeding, that doesn't matter.
So
But I'm just worried about the moisture in the hive. We're gonna bring all that back.
I'm only feeding them like during the day, so like I'll fill the feeders during the day, or I'll do all during the day when it's warm out.
And are you doing 2 to 1
I'm
now?
just trying to keep them alive,
Yeah.
Are you doing 2 to 1 now?
and I don't need it. I just, so for me, like if you beat it hard, it'll mix, right? So like if you use a mortar mixer on a drill on a bucket, it'll mix up, you don't have to pump it out. I use a sump pump and a 50-gallon drum. Or a tote. I lost my tote, so, and I haven't found a food grade one, so if anybody has got a hookup for food grade totes, I would love one. But,
Can you just put like sugar in the hive? Isn't somebody?
you can't, they'll carry it out, stuck there. So during the winter, you can put it on, you put it right on top of the cluster.
Like paper plate.
I do that all winter, so I'll take a piece of newspaper, maybe. Other times I'll just clump it and set it right on top of the frames.
Just white sugar.
So I do, basically what Randy posted the video on. I got it off Randy Oliver, but it's sugar. And then I do either a 2 to 4% pollen sub in there, depending on the time of year. So this time of year, I'm using like 2, well, when I start doing, I should say like November when it's cold. I'll do like 2%, but then as it starts getting closer to end of February, I'll start pumping 3 to 4%. Just because they're building.
What's the percentage, sorry, percent of what?
It's 4% of the sugar. So if you have 100 pounds of sugar.
Yeah.
You'd have 4 pounds of pollen sub. For 4%.
And then how do you get it to stick
And
together?
then I mix it in a cement mixer, but you could mix a small batch.
With water.
But I take it's like 2 to 1 syrup, with a little honeybee healthy in it. And I'll put it in there until it turns like magic sand texture, if you know what that is. Like when you squeeze it, no liquid should come out of it, but it should hold and form. I know that is so,
Scientific.
that doesn't help you, but like, when you do it, you'll be like, oh, that's.
Yeah.
Sandcastle stand.
Yeah.
When I mix it, I'll post it with you. It'll be probably in 2 weeks, usually Thanksgiving.
And you just make that into patties and then let it dry and put them in there?
It depends. So I'll use takeout containers. Like those things are like a frozen dinner container or whatever, I always say. So for Tupperwares you can use, I'll pack that. If I have time to prep, which I rarely ever have, I'll put those all on a board or on a table and I'll put a fan on it. And it'll turn almost hard as a rock, and then I can put that right on top of the hive. I don't want it super hard, but I want it to hold its form.
Right. No, it's all done.
But the thing about those
It's gonna suck
sugar
the
bricks,
moisture
we
out.
call them sugar bricks, because we use, like, when we get hamburger in a tray, that styrofoam
Yeah, that's
tray,
perfect, yeah.
we'll pack it in there, so you got a nice little brick about that thick. And, you know, we keep those on top. The thing about that is if it's right above the brood nest, they're transpiring, so they're releasing water into the air.
Yeah.
And that's gonna make that so that they can,
Sucks it right up, sucks up all that moisture.
yeah.
We did that last year after Dave Burns was here. We took the meat trays or whatever and washed them, and then we mixed the sugar with the honeybee healthy, bee protein, and then the amino acids. And I found the heat mats that you use to start seeds on,
Yeah.
I would line them up on there and it'd take just a few days and they'd be dry and hard, and I could flip them out of those and slide them right in my hives.
That's a really good.
Yeah, those little,
Work.
it did. I just had them lined up on my starting tables and threw all my sugar things on there until they dried
Did
out.
that liquid mixture, right?
It
Like
dried
Kathy
out.
helped me a couple of years ago, we went and put some on hives, I think it was like New Year's Day or something. We just packed it in the hand and then put it on top, kind of like a snowball. And I don't care if a little bit falls through, because they'll be on it, it's one day.
But those meat trays, you know, you just reuse them, you just pack it in there, once it's hard, You take it out, you can make more sugar bricks.
And that's what I do with those takeout trays or whatever, use what you got, it doesn't matter, you don't need to get. There's no one perfect thing, go buy it, like, use what you got later on. But the one thing for me personally, is I don't wanna cover the whole hive. 'Cause that's a waste of sugar, sugar's expensive, so, I know I say sugar. The bees is, right, but I think it's what, 70 something cents a pound right now. So it's bonkers expensive, but I'll just make one big enough to cover the cluster, and then I'll check that every 3-4 weeks. Go take a quick peek in there and put it on there. I know people panic.
In there, you can see them and you just slide it in wherever they're at.
Yeah, be quick about it. I mean, you don't have to be like seconds, like, if they don't have food, they're gonna starve to death. Period. So it doesn't, there's no little heater going inside of that hive, so when you open the lid, you're not destroying them, but I wouldn't like open the lid and stare at them for 30 minutes, but like, you can look in real quick, put the patty in and be done. A nice feeding shim on top to give you that space.
The other thing is make sure that, you know, if you've got them arranged so that you have the brood chamber in the bottom right now, and you have frames above it, make sure those frames are top to bottom filled with food. Cause I've seen it happen where I've had like maybe this much space at the bottom of the top frame. And they died in that bottom frame with 3/4 of the frame still had honey above them.
Yeah.
They just won't cross an empty food desert.
100%. Because, well, a lot of times they can't, 'cause it's so cold, and everybody's gotta be moving to do it, and if they get split, your hive's dead. Unfortunately.
Does anybody in here overwinter single deeps, or does everybody do
Yes.
double deeps? Do single deep?
I do everything. I'll do single deeps, I'll do deeps with medium, I'll do double deeps. Depends what hardware I have.
How do they do in a single deep?
You gotta put a ton of food on them. Make sure they're heavy, so they should be like 70, 80, 90 pounds. That box, like stuff with food. And then I'll put as soon as it gets cold, when it stays chilly, or like, I usually say like deer season, so like first shotgun season. That's the weekend before Thanksgiving. I'll put the feeding shim on there and then I'll put the feed on top. Cause if they can move, they'll carry that feed out, they'll throw it away. So if they stay clustered, then that food can stay on top of them, good shape.
Do you insulate yours at all?
I don't listen to me about this, cause I just, it's what I just bought 2 sheets of 2-inch pink foam and it was $50 a sheet.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
There's a guy down by Effingham that sells that stuff unused or damaged,
When you go pick some up, let me know.
and it's usually
I'll
about.
cover some gas.
I'm gonna call down there because.
Yeah, seriously, I'll buy some.
I have, and I bought some of these several years ago, and then, last year, the year before, I bought enough for all of my hives. Manlake makes, it's foam, like an inch of foam that is wrapped in vinyl, and you wrap it around your
Yeah.
Velcro, and I wrap my sides with that Velcro. And then I've got an outer cover that's got 2 inches of foam built in the outer cover, and it's just like an outer cover, other than it's about this deep on the side. And I've got that 2 inches of foam in there. I keep that on it all year round.
They sell them all.
Keep them cool in the summer and warm in the winter.
I think there's a lot to that. I think a lot of people say, insulation is hogwash. I don't think it's hogwash at all.
No,
I see, matter of fact, our breeder queens are in those finished hives. They're expensive. They're like, I don't know, what do I got? Probably $150 for two medium nukes and bottom, a bottom and a top, but
so
they do really well on those.
to me, if you insulate, and your average temperature is 30 degrees.
What's R6 versus R1, right? So that's the big difference.
Yeah, and so basically, at the very least, they're burning a lot less fuel
That's exactly.
to stay alive. using, and my hives, usually I have that top super full of sugar water, because I take all their honey and I give them sugar water. And so they overwinter on sugar water. I have, mine always has plenty left over in the spring. And it's because they don't have to work near as hard to keep their hive warm.
Just think about your house, you know, like how much insulation do you have in the wall? More insulation you have in the wall, the less you have to heat it. And of course, we'll let
Your
stuff-
gas or propane, replace that with food.
Yeah.
Right, cause they gotta have calories to make heat to stay alive, just like if you were stuck outside, you have to have calories to shiver to stay warm. It's the same thing that's going on there.
The other thing we do as far as our single leaves, we run single leaves during the summer. And like James, we take the supers off, there's none of the supers there. And we have extra deep boxes. And so what we do is we put 5 frames, the most brood heavy frames in the bottom. I'm starting that this week. And then I'm putting insulation boards that fit in the same space a frame would fit, but it's top to bottom, so it's the same height as the deep box is.
Okay.
And so I end up with on one side, 3 frames worth of foam, other side, 2 frames worth of foam.
It's plywood and then foam, right? So you got plywood
Yeah.
facing the bees.
So what I buy is I buy 1.5 inch foam for the most outside. I call it a follower board. And then the board that is right next to the frames will get a piece of 1/2 inch plywood with a 1 inch piece of foam. So that it's basically a foam, or, you know, the thing I found out, with the foam follower boards, that pink foam, they love to just chew right into
Oh,
it.
yeah, styrofoam.
You can walk up to the hive and turn that.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's either them or the ants that do it too.
so that's why I make, you know, in each hive that gets a follower board, the most inside follower board is a 1/2 inch plywood plus a.
Can you snap some pictures when you get them set up this year, and then next
Yeah.
meeting, if we got a couple minutes at the end? Like, if you send me the pictures, I can put them up on the screen and show them.
Yeah,
That's a slick system.
because it harkens back to, what's the guy out of Vermont?
Michael Palmer.
Michael Palmer. He talks about how, you know, bees
Can be.
are chimney.
Yeah.
And so by putting that deep over a deep with 5 frames each in the middle with the foam on the outside, they're getting a good amount of insulation. I sometimes wished I could insulate front and back, and I might do something to insulate the front and back.
See, bring a trailer out on that.
But the, you know, like maybe wrap some foam around the front and back of the hive. But it is 5 frames off. And like I said, I don't have a full frame above the brood nest, they're not gonna do well.
I like your idea because you're reusing your hardware, right? You're not moving as many bees, right? So as they're emptying those outside frames, you're just backfilling it with insulation and then filling that box just to keep them strong.
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea.
And what I tend to do is, as spring comes along and they start increasing, okay, they're gonna have some cold days. And so I'm like, okay, they need another frame. So I'll pull one of my foam follower boards out and put in a frame for them to work. And so they don't get that whole 10 frames wide right away. They get a frame length at a time. And so,
We're all jealous of your retirement, Kev.
Yeah.
You have time to do that. One day.
How many hives do you have now?
I've dropped down to about, 17 right now.
How much does HQ have?
Well,
How many does your wife have?
oh,
You have
she's,
separate bees.
she is retired from beekeeping.
Really?
She's just doing the inside the house stuff. And then, you know, she also
Does she take?
provides a certain amount of critical.
Expensive tea bag.
He did.
I noticed how you chose your words.
Yeah.
She, she's happy to do the bottling and I can't say she's happy to do the bottling. She sometimes complains about that being a little too sticky. But she does love her soap making and float bars.
Ours is crystallizing in the buckets. I'm trying to get it in the bottles. So back to the Nosema first. So you brought up something that made me think. So fungus is what the Nosema is. Am I tracking on that? And then,
Follow it.
so if that is what was brought in to control crickets and other critters in fields,
Different species though.
but it is still a fungus.
Yeah, it's still really, it's related, just like there's different types of flies, different types of mosquitoes.
Okay, so ecosystem in my yard, I get that brown leaf type of fungus on my peonies, on my lily of the valley. Like, is my yard fungal? I mean, is that something going on?
But that's a good thing. Because the
How much is it a good
mycorrhizal
thing?
from the fungus is gonna help their plants get water and nutrients.
Yeah.
I mean,
Wait,
it's
say that
the
again, please.
moisture.
Are you full sun?
Not some of it, some of it's not, like the lily of the valley is all shade.
Right.
And look, that, should that get the brown leaf where it's half dead looking in summer?
That's a whole different type of fungus, because this is just a microsporidium, the part that's affecting a bee or the crickets is just a single cell. With a shell, like a seed, basically, and it's got a trigger on it. In order for that trigger to even activate, it's gotta be in the right pH, which would be the gut of the
Okay,
insect that infects. It's like, that's Nosema apis. Specific to.
there's
these.
lots of different. fungus.
So the one I did the study on in college was Nosema locusta, which was locust or cricket grasshoppers. They don't infect bees. They don't infect people. They don't infect cats or dogs.
Okay.
They're very, very specific because the pH balance inside us versus other animals.
So like walking barefoot in my yard, which I don't do because of,
But they have hookworms on dogs. You could get.
you know, I'm not gonna get like, you know, athlete's foot or something.
Your feet turn brown.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Right,
But fungus is necessary to break down the leaf litter and everything else in your
well,
yard.
right, but I would think later on in the fall, or no, is what you're saying.
You should look up that type of fungus and see what prevents it. Because it could be not enough sun, not too much moisture.
Well, my peonies, and my lily of the valleys are opposite sides of the, little peonies are like practically full sun. Yeah. I would say full sun, and then the lily, I mean, so there's fungus all over and on the lilacs and everything, like, the past couple of years it's happened, so I guess that's what triggered my thought.
And there are good funguses too, like mushrooms.
Yeah.
We'll make
Air movement effects. I heard it.
humidity, sunlight,
You can eat some of them.
air movement will dry up.
It's all.
And some of them can kill you too.
And the seasons as they change each year, you're not gonna have the same.
Now that, you know, nutritional stuff with plants also. So that their leaf, they're gonna be more susceptible.
Always takes wills, I can't tell you.
Well,
What I wonder about, like, your yard is the airflow. Cause you have like give a big fence on let's see, pick my direction, it's your west side.
Yeah.
So, and then you got, right now you got corn to the north. So it's like, it's kind of boxed in, yeah. Now, that corn will be gone in a week or two, but
Right, well, and a lot of the things that I hear people talking about is almost counter of what's going on in mine. Like, I read the ISBA newsletter, and they're like, it sounds like a lot of people were low on honey, and I'm like, I had the most honey I've ever had. And,
We got guys over by Chatsworth that they said they hardly got any.
yeah, I,
We,
got a lot.
and so, I mean, some of it's the difference, I think, from being in town, which you
Right.
get versus out of town.
But if you think some of it was weather, because there was a lot of swarming this year, I mean.
it's a great year for bees. Be careful.
So-
Right.
Yeah.
And except for mine,
Well,
I mean, I-
agree too.
I had good bees and good honey, and then I messed it up, it was my fault.
I mean, you got a lot of soybeans around you too, so there could have been a bunch of soybean nectar.
And I got fruit trees all around and dandies and,
There's tons of habitat.
yeah,
You got, I mean, old farm lakes around there with the waterway and all that stuff, so. You got people watering their lawns, you got all kinds of things.
And aren't you close to the airport?
Yeah, she looks at her back window.
Oh, back here.
Because all those grasses is gonna have a ton of clover,
yeah, they do,
tons of clover.
yeah.
See, for
She
me,
had tons of
the 3 prior years, we made about 1,200 pounds of honey. This last summer, we made 600. Made half the honey we made the 3 prior.
I'd say that's on par with us, we probably made a third to a half. And almost one more than half of these, to be honest with you.
And the area where our bees are, there's lots of clover, there's lots of grasses and, just field with wildflowers and all kinds of stuff. It's a wonderful habitat out there.
Even the sweet clover didn't seem to produce like it normally does. Like
Yeah.
The ladino didn't produce like it normally does. I think it's just because it was super dry and.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it a rough year?
Every year we said, it was a really weird year.
And but what was funny was last summer, we had a pretty dry year last summer, and we had a ton of
compared to this year.
And I was really surprised because I thought last year, I thought we weren't gonna make that much honey, and we made just as much, and I can't remember who it was in the meeting that said, well, the reason why you're making as much is you get less nectar, but the nectar is more concentrated.
And not washed away either.
Right.
Yeah, and not.
None of
washed
the gold brine I forgot
away.
washed
But yet, that wasn't true this year.
What's interesting though is like, I've always heard from like pros and some of that stuff, they say drought years are the best years. And I think that's because weeds they take a hold so bad when there's a drought. But like always drought, like if you talk to the old timers that have been doing this for a long time, they'll say drought years are always the best years for honey production. Not this year. The bees were great, super healthy hives, like, but they eat every little bit they bring in. Just because they're growing so fast. And right now, I can't put enough on. They're just gobbling it all up, they're not putting on any weight at all. And it's getting depressing, I've already gone through it. 550 gallon drums of sugar. For 2 weeks. Good have to lose it.
How many hives?
A lot.
That's so cute. But at what point's the cutoff? Like, if you're looking at profitability, or you just want them to live till next year regardless of the cost, or?
I want them to live, like, they're my babies, like, I want them to live. I want them to perform, I want them to have the best life they can have.
We have 1,200 or 12 hives, we've fed about 600 pounds of sugar. Yeah, of sugar.
Yeah, wow.
I mean, that's your job when you have bees, is to keep them
Yeah.
alive.
Yeah.
I mean, we lost a couple hives, but the other times we have her nice and happy.
Yeah, you made a bunch of splits, didn't you, this year?
Well,
Some on purpose.
Sure, yeah.
What's all that fancy traveling you're doing?
some
like,
swarms,
retirement?
yeah, no, but that's bad for beekeeping, cause
Yes,
it's
it
like, okay, we're gone. Okay, we have company.
Yeah, there's a house over here.
The sugar's on the back porch, girls, we'll be back in 2
Yeah,
minutes.
really. Yeah.
No, don't like that way.
Give them tomorrow, but we haven't really found.
Gonna have to.
I mean, it's still pretty warm.
We've been.
Yeah.
keeping- Well, most of our hives have almost a full box of honey, of sugar water on the top. Most of ours are getting pretty heavy. And so right now, we're just kind of trying to keep them where they're at now.
We're just going through it as fast as I can put it on.
I just got 225.
You said earlier about taking your supers off. I'm still running 2 brood boxes, super. And I talked to a lady in a festival over the weekend who's got 150 hives and sells commercially. She recommended I leave the super on until a warm day in December.
If it's full,
Gets to 40 to 50 degrees. She said, then get in there and look if they've used most of that honey, pull it off.
is it full?
They're pretty full.
Like how often you check it?
What's that?
How often are you checking it? Weekly?
Yeah,
So if it's full, leave it on. If it's partially full, pull it off. But I would consolidate as well. So like pull your super frames from all your hives. And then make sure you got full ones on the ones that you can afford, right? So if you got enough frames to make 2 or 3 full supers for your, cause you got a bunch of hives now, right? But 2. So we got a bunch of hardware, I should say. So like if you can consolidate down one of them, make sure it's packed with honey, I would leave it on. If you're gambling. Beekeeping is a gamble anyway.
Well,
But like, you're gambling that you're gonna have a nice day in December to do that.
We're gonna be gone for 3 months.
One of the things that you can do is whenever you pull those, like right now, I've got 3 supers that we pulled off. And I've got them set off to the side and my bees are robbing them out.
That's
And
exactly
so they're
right.
just moving it from that super back into the
Yeah.
hive. And another thing you can do. You can take that super, you can scratch those frames to open up the honey and put it on the bottom. And then they'll move it up. Am I correct?
I've done that during the season, I wouldn't chance it this time of year, but
That's just why you leave it out.
I would leave it out over. You're gonna see the
you-
neighbors like, oh.
Could you put that super on top of the inner cover so they can get up to it, drop it? And easier for you to take it off, but also protects their.
Bottom line, there's a lot of solutions, right? You can be creative and watch it, and I don't
We didn't ask
know,
you if you were
in your
feeding.
situation,
Feeding them? So you're feeding them, you have a honey super on, so that's honey now. They put honey in there.
right?
honey.
Honey, it means if you're feeding them, it's sugar water honey, it's not nectar.
Oh, well, this lady's theory was if they're using that honey in that super for their feed, they aren't getting it out of the brood boxes.
Yeah,
That's fine. You're fine feeding
Yeah,
them.
yeah.
What she's saying is just be aware that in the spring, if there's still stuff in there, you gotta put it out, let them rob it, let them eat that. That's for making bees, not for going on a bottle. So I don't know, I have a couple other customers that have that luxury of wintering somewhere else. Go somewhere nice, but, and they asked me like, well, what should I do? And I'm like, if I was in your shoes, I'd be feeding heavy until the day you leave. And then I would probably have a box on top and I would just stuff it with sugar. I'd probably put newspaper on it, spray it down with some Honey Bee Healthy and then dump sugar in there. That dry feed mix, or put a bunch of those fondant pads on there. Pay your neighbor to go make sure they have it in there.
yeah, 'cause if they run out of food before you get back, they're gonna be dead.
Take them with you.
Yeah, they like to go warm places too.
They
Your drive is wherever you're going, right? Take these with you.
Yeah.
take your leaves over to the California almond groves or.
Yeah, that's what we should use.
Spray
for
them
the-
down, spray them before, yeah.
Mutual group.
But the thing I found about having a super on top with my method
It's not bad.
is I got to the point
That's not
2
bad.
years ago, 3 years ago, where I got honey off of the biggest part of my hives, and I had about, a little over a third of those hives. I left a super on because I was consolidating, like Tom said. But because I like to have that chimney. Well, leaving a super up there, cause I didn't have follower boards for
Medium.
that configuration. So all of a sudden, there's this big open white space. And every hive that I left those supers on, the bees died out because they couldn't keep their temperature up. Is what I think happened.
You
left
left
the
the super on with nothing in it.
Oh, no, okay, so you go out there, you're like, okay, these are capped frames. Here's 4 frames that are uncapped, but a lot of nectar in it. And so I moved those 4 capped frames into another hive. And I take all the empty frames out. So it was at least nectar filled frames. But, 2/3 of the hives were my standard configuration and they did better. And 1/3 were with the supers left on top through the winter and those hives died. It's like signing the death warrant on them.
I had two swarm calls this week. I don't know.
Oh,
Seen
they're still,
really
they're
lot
coming
of
in, yeah, most of them are in buildings.
Yeah.
Seen
No,
lots of
it's-
cows.
Like, yeah, people had.
But there are some,
Actual swarms.
and,
The bees don't know when it's 90 degrees, they're like, oh, no, it's still summer.
So I would say one other thing that you should keep in mind this time of year is like, I wouldn't say go down to the smallest entrance on your hive. But I would have your entrance reducers on for sure, so that they can manage wasps and stuff like that, cause like every hive I've gone into has wasps in it right now.
Or if you have robbing screens.
now I make a simple robbing screen, I take the mesh, wire mesh and kind of put it on the opening and over, so the bees, residence bees kind of have to come up and in, where the robbers just want to try to go in as fast, and they can't get through that wire.
I mean, you could probably put the smallest entrance on and be okay right now.
Cause they're not bringing anything in. So they don't need to get in fast.
Yeah, it's just the warm weather. I think they're just flying looking for food and burning calories.
Yeah.
And they've been a little grumpy,
Yeah,
No.
feisty.
I made it all through inspections without getting stung, and then we had our jackets in the truck and it was dark and we were riding home and I'm just sitting there and touched something and I go, just got stung right there.
Wow.
And then I was like, oh, they're one of my faces, is it the same one or a different one?
Yeah, it's, I
It was
was
dark.
yeah. My hives were fine, if I walk by the club hives, they're
Yeah.
apparently.
No, they were mostly.
We got one that, it was in a double stack in at our house. And it was just hot. It was mean, nasty. I mean, you look at the thing, they'd come out at you. And I packed it up and I took it out to our other location. And I combined them with a hive that had went queenless. And come back the next week and they were gone. It's the strangest thing. And one way or the other, that queen's gonna die this spring. Because we're gonna replace her, but they've totally calmed down.
Those ones that are fired, you're still, the ones that are on fire,
I know it.
they're hostile and angry, man, they put on a ton of honey.
No doubt.
We had 2 weeks ago, had a queen cell in one of them. Everything else looked perfect in the hive. They had lots of brood, lots of calf brood, lots of honey, and I'm like, there were lots of eggs. And what are you guys doing? But then when we were in 2 weeks later, they hadn't swarmed.
I didn't see any drones today. I don't know.
Yeah, the hardly any drones now, which is a good sign, but I saw a little bit of drone brood, one of the highs we were inspecting.
You had a question.
It's too late in the year to worry about mites.
Never.
It's never too late. It's always a good day to worry about.
I treated late September. Or mid-September. I haven't tested since. I know that the treatment's pretty rough on them. And
Depends on the treatment.
You could put Apogard or Apovar in there, or you could put the oxalic acid pads in.
I used H.R. the first time and they did a lot of bearding, a lot. And it's a lot warmer too. It's, well, it's cool.
I've never seen Apogard or Apogard. Apovar is just a white plastic strip.
Yeah, that's
Chemicals. They were bearded.
I've never seen weird, that's weird.
That's weird.
Maybe it was the other one. I don't know.
It was standard.
Oh, yeah.
It's a 6 week.
I'm gagging as we're putting it on.
Yeah, so we were leaving to go to Yellowstone. And I was like, well, we need to treat our hives again. And so I looked at the forecast and it said high was 86, like for the next 2 weeks. So I was like, well, 85 is the threshold, so we'll put in, so we treated a bunch of them. And then within like 2 days, then the temperature like went up in the 90s.
You're all right. Is
And
that like the first 3
we
days?
lost 2 out of 29 we lost to that, but I was like, that was good, because we didn't kill a bunch of queens.
Yeah, but probably knocked the mice out really good.
I hope so.
Now, getting back to yours, another thing that you could do that we do every year, is, like the weekend of Thanksgiving, we'll treat with oxalic acid vapor.
Yeah.
And then a week or 2 later, we'll treat them again with oxalic acid.
Like tomorrow morning is a great time to hit them with OA, cause it's gonna be chilly tonight. Well, tomorrow night it's gonna be really chilly. It's gonna drop 20, 30 degrees. So that's a great time to hit them, like especially if you're an early bird.
But Thanksgiving though, they won't have.
Thanksgiving's a great time, but
They
like,
won't have.
Yeah.
you're not gonna hurt them with the OA is what I'm saying.
Yeah, you're not gonna hurt them.
And they'll all be clustered because of the cold, so you'll get a good kill. You won't,
That
Yeah,
doesn't drive around the hive.
no, but what James is saying, you always gotta keep that in your head is, there's no one mite treatment that's the silver bullet, right? There's the right treatment for the right situation. So it's understanding how they work. So like Formic, I think, is the only one that can do anything underneath the capping. I think there's another one to be.
Hopper.
The new Veroxan runs like 3 cycles.
I haven't read about that one.
I put some in and I'm seeing, I haven't gone back and tested yet. It's not done, but like.
It'd be interesting to put sticky boards underneath.
Yeah,
it,
it's
see what
on
drops.
my drop.
Is it?
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to testing again.
I used Formic Pro.
Yeah, that'll go.
Yeah,
underneath the
yeah.
cappings.
And I
But then if you didn't get rid of all your mites and they still build up some, then what James is saying is when he does it in November, it's because they don't have much cap root at all by that point. So you don't have to worry about getting under the cappings and the vaporization.
And you're gonna, anything that is sporadic on the bees, anything on the bees, you're gonna get 90% kill. And so that's one of the reasons we hit them once and then 2 weeks later we hit them again. That way you're getting 90% and you're getting 90% of that 10%.
And it's not as tough on these, the
Oh, no, you can put, you know, the law says 2 grams per box. You could give them 5, 6, 7 grams per box, and it's not gonna hurt them.
Yeah, I agree with that too. Like,
You can hit them as hard as you want. There's guys out there with these big bazooka things and they stick it in there, and I mean, the stuff is just a flying out like crazy. Doesn't bother them.
I do at least double
Yeah.
Well, I learned
Legal
you
limit.
smell that Formic Pro, you don't want.
Yeah, no.
Oh, that's nasty.
Yeah.
you learn your wind really quick.
It's not that bad.
And to be fast. Yeah, stand up.
But they,
So quick.
boy, you start putting it on, they come pouring out of there. That's why I was wondering.
It's
about
long.
it.
Yeah, well, what I do is I take and I just tape off in the winter time, because you got reducers on anyway. I tape off the front, I tape off my upper entrance, and then I drill a hole and the bottom board at the back of the hive big enough to stick my acrylic acid vapor in.
Do you put a golf tee in there or you leave it open?
I just leave it open. And then just use the drill to clean it out whenever I get ready to use it. That way it pretty much locks it in there for 'em.
I'm excited to try my Laura beads one.
Is there a difference in the applicators between what you can buy at Van and Lake and what you can buy on Amazon?
As far as the oxalic acid vaporizer,
Yeah.
lots of different ones.
I got one for sale.
I got
Yeah,
one,
we paid for
I got one new in the box,
Oh, so did you
but
get the
we never
cordless
used
one?
it, cause you had to hook it up to the battery and I didn't have anything to haul the battery.
When you get that far cheaper.
Yeah.
I don't like Amazon that you can buy. You can buy.
Yeah.
Just so it's for sale.
Just
Yeah,
like, you
no
know,
problem.
what it
You
includes.
get what you paid for.
Yeah, you get what you pay for. I would, like, Tom was talking about, well, Rob Pease has a good quality one. I've got, that's what I have. And then, John Hill's got one too. What's?
He's
what
carrying
is his
theirs.
like?
He's carrying Laura now.
Yeah.
Is that, he's got, yeah, he does have that.
I have that other one. That's the one I'm selling, is the one that he was selling before that they made. It works pretty well. You have to run, you have to run some water through it every now and then because of the way it's plugged up. But it works really well.
It has the,
It's 12 volts, yeah.
yeah.
There's 12 volts, or I think they
I
even
don't
have
know how
one.
much the wall, you know, whatever.
That's the lower one that I have, that runs off of the battery pack, so I got one. Mine runs off Milwaukee, but I got a converter too, so I can use my rigid packs for my old ones. It goes through them pretty quick.
There's one in the club's equipment, but that's the little pan.
Little pocket.
Yeah.
Still works.
It works, yeah.
You'll get your beast treated.
Yeah.
It's just once you get used to the little,
Zap.
10
seconds.
quarter-inch hole.
Wow.
Those little pills are nice too, I bought some of those ox tape, they're like little. Pellets, tablets, they're one gram or whatever, so you just put in 4 or 6 pellets and it goes, you don't have to sit there and use the measurement, but the lower bees actually have a stick that you can
Yeah.
do the pre-measured, which is pretty nice.
I wish you'd make a retrofit to be able to set one of those on top.
They do. Well, Probate has one.
Oh, Rob Bees? For the one for Rob Bees.
Oh, yours doesn't have.
I had the old one. I've got the old 110 one.
Yeah.
I would call them up. They're super nice.
I did. And he didn't seem to be interested, like there was enough to worry about doing that.
Don't even want to trade it for her.
Yeah, then I'd have to get it through the finance department.
That's correct.
Yeah.
She didn't stick with it. She had a good cookie. But she didn't stick.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I said, I need an easy one or that's not gonna happen, so that's why I need that.
They're nutty expensive. I don't know why they're so expensive.
Because they can.
That's correct. It is nice material. It's heavy.
Yeah.
It's made for
January.
And it
Well,
fits
should
in
we
a
wrap it
handle.
up?
It fits in a
I would say yes.
Let's wrap it up.
Really, Jack.
Okay.